kind of wanted to work with them as well and get everybody included. And then we had a great turnout. So, and then all the money that we raised, we donated to the families of people who were murdered by Black people. I mean, the police, sorry. Yeah, thank you. I think for me, a huge turning point in just my life when I realized that I really cared about social justice, and I'm sure a lot of people my age will tell you this, but the murder of Trayvon Martin kind of it like sparked a fire in me. So that's really when I started getting into politics and getting into social justice and things like that. And I was still very young at the time. I think I was in middle school, so I wasn't in the front lines at that time. But it made me, I've always been one to be very vocal about how I feel, and I don't mind making people feel uncomfortable that don't want to acknowledge the conversation. So I will 100% be the person in the room to bring it up and say, hey, we're not going to just ignore this. We have to talk about it. And that was a big spark for me. And then seeing so many other young people my age that I go to school with at Ohio State leading, and we were leading things on campus. There were people leading at the front lines of Cincinnati. That really inspired me to say, hey, well, why is nobody doing this in my hometown? And I felt that I should just take the initiative and take the step up and be that person to get everyone together. Yeah, so I worked in two campaigns. The most recent was Derek Bowen. He was a former police officer, really great guy. We had a great time together. Unfortunately, that race did not continue, but I learned a lot, and it really I actually, well, I know this is in no comparison, but I did run for class president for 2 years in high school, and I won both of them successfully. So that was my first experience campaigning. But I worked with Derek Bauman, and that was after my protest. So a young woman who works for you, Alyssa Conley, she was working on his campaign, and she introduced me to you, and she also introduced me to Derek, and that's how I kind of got started in the political route here in Cincinnati. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to know if you experienced any resistance. I know you said you were able to, raise a significant amount of money to help you to do this for the first time in Fairfield. Now, I'm from Forest Park, so I'm right next door to you.
Yeah.
But did anyone give you a hard time about it, or because of the atmosphere and so much attention being focused on George Floyd at that time, did you just kind of get the green light and support? Were there any naysayers or haters, if
I
you
would
will?
say for the most part, I was very, very to have such a support. But we definitely had people that were not the happiest, some older non-people of color that were driving past, and we got some honks, we got some bad language, some gestures, I would say, but there were enough of us and not enough of them to where it didn't matter. We still were able to continue on. We even actually we worked kind of close with the police department just because in Fairfield the way it's set up we had to cross the highway, and so I just wanted to make sure that that was done safely. So we did do that, but we did not have, we actually, it was really lucky. We had a great support system. I reached out to my high school principal and asked, like, hey, can we use your parking lot to set up posters? And they gave us all the green light. They were super supportive, let us use the facilities. So we had a lot more support than we did naysayers, which I'm very grateful for.
at any time, and that's a wonderful thing. At any time, were you afraid? Did you ever have any reason to be concerned?
Um, I would say not at the protest that I led. Weren't there with the best, knew what reason I was there for, so that kind of helped ease my mind and just made me want to stay and just power through it.
It's important that you just mentioned how you were sparked in a great deal in part by the Trayvon Martin um, killing, and I believe it's around that anniversary of that time. I've been seeing a lot of media in recent days. In your opinion, as a young millennial, do you believe that things have changed or gotten better since that day, and particularly since you've gotten involved? Do you see a change at all, or do you feel hopeful for the future as a young person?
Um, I would say I think after George Floyd, with the media and the social pressures, I definitely think that had some influence on the outcome of that case, particularly. But I don't want to say that I think that the system itself has changed yet. I definitely think we need a lot of reform. We need a lot of, I have my own opinions on that. I don't want to get too much into it. But I don't think that that has changed. But I do think that people, especially my age, it's sparked a fire in us. We've had this awakening. We want to change. We want to push for change. And we've just been a lot more active. I would say young people talk politics that much. And so now the age group that I'm in, I think that that's really big for us. And we are very educated and we're very passionate about our beliefs. And I think that that has been the biggest change. And I think that that will cause the change that we need because we are the future.
Yes, you are, and still supported where you are in your thinking and people in your age group, and where I am in the much older age group. You see us, Bill, that you all are able to also apply the principles of the past into your present way of thinking and doing things that will enable us to hopefully have a more positive future. Do you see it a clash, or do you see a working together of the different generations?
I see a little bit of both. I definitely think that we're a little naive at times, and I think the older generation, you guys have a little bit more wisdom and experience. So things that we may think that are this is going to work, you guys have already lived it. You can see that it's different, and so that's the only clash I see. But I think that we all have the same end goal in the end. But young people, our minds are a little. We just have higher hopes, I guess you could say. Speaking with people of like my parents and my uncles, my aunts, they kind of have this, well, it is what it is mindset. But to me, I can't wrap my head, or I can't accept that. That will never be okay with me. And I think that there are definitely individuals who still have that beliefs as well. But I think it's just our methods and our tactics are different. That's the only clash I see. But I think that we overall all have the same goal.
And my final question will be, what can we do to support you all in picking up and running with the torch that obviously has been, or in the baton that has been passed now for many decades? What can we do, in your opinion, to move forward?
I think just engaging with us, like doing things like this where you're incorporating young individuals and giving us a platform and building those relationships. Like Dr. Enoch has reached out to me multiple times. She's provided me with a lot of different opportunities, and there's been panels that I've spoken on before, which I still have a relationship with those people. And so I think doing things like this and just getting us engaged and being relatable is really helpful. I've learned personally, seeing adults of an older generation as people opposed to adults. I mean, I know I'm 23, I'm an adult now, but it's kind of like seeing your parents as people. So seeing you guys as people and understanding that you guys went through the same things as us, even though you're not there currently, we're gonna be where you are. You've been where we are. So just kind of understanding that and seeing each other as equals is definitely a huge help. And just providing the platform, giving us the opportunities has been a great thing. And I could say that for a lot of young leaders like myself. We've all kind of agreed on that.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Enoch or Representative Thompson.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that will conclude our time with Ms. Maya Middlebrook.
Thank you.
I just want to personally congratulate and commend you
Oh,
on
thank you.
being a trailblazer in your area and for taking the lead. There's a saying that it starts with one. Oftentimes, we're looking for somebody else to do what needs to be done. And when we identify the problem, but I've always believed that we be the solution, and it looks like that's what you are. And so, good
Thank
job, young lady. Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
All right, and we invite you to stay on as well, if you'd like to. We're going to turn our attention to Representative Thompson now. But again, thanks for joining us. And if you'd like to stay on the broadcast, we're off air. We're going to allow you to stay
Okay.
on. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a good one.
All right. With that, again, I want to invite everyone, if you're tuned in or engaged this evening, that was Maya Middlebrook, a young 23-year-old lady, obviously very impressive. And now we're going to talk with someone who has, like myself, been through the ringer. Yes. And our stories really parallel in many ways, with the exception of I was charged with crimes, but what he's gone through has been incredible. And I just want to again encourage everyone who is on, if you would please share your live feed. If you're watching via Facebook or even live stream, if you would share your feed with your Facebook audience so that other people will also have the benefit and the story that you're going to hear this evening. It's incredible. But I'm going to share Representative's bio with you, Representative Ricky Thompson. He's currently serving in the Mississippi House of Representatives, District 16, Lee and Monroe counties. Representative Ricky Thompson served as Justice Court Judge in Lee County for over 12 years. In 2008, he was instrumental in implementing the first drug court in Lee County and the second Justice Court drug court in the state of Mississippi until July 2013. Representative Thompson is a 2009 graduate of the Jim Ingram Community Leadership Institute. In 2003, he became the first Black Justice Court Judge in Lee County, and in 1996, he became Lee County's first Black Election Commission and served until 2002. Representative Thompson serves as board member for National Council on Alcohol and Drug Dependence, Create Foundation, and Minority Pull Alliance. He is a member of the National Judicial College, the Mississippi Justice Court Judge Association, and the Mississippi Association of Drug Court Professionals. He's also a member of the Union Baptist Church in Shannon, where he serves as Brotherhood President and Assistant Sunday School Superintendent. He volunteers monthly at Helping Hand Food Pantry in Tupelo and is a community activist, inspirational speaker, as well as a motivator. He currently also serves as CEO of Concerned Citizens for Justice and is a board member of the Mississippi Center for Human Rights. In nursing from the Itawamba Community College as a licensed practical nurse and is a graduate of Shannon High School. He's also, and this is probably the most important thing of all, he's married to Sheila Ivory Thompson and is the proud father of 4 children and 2 granddaughters. Good evening, Representative Thompson. Thank you so much for joining us here this evening.
Good evening, Judge. It is a pleasure to be on this conference this afternoon. I'm so excited. It's good to see you once again. And I'm just excited to be here and just kind of explain to what's going on in the state of Mississippi.
Well, absolutely. And we're going to allow you to do all of that. We met here, I believe you all, if I'm correct, may have reached out initially because you heard about, you reached out. Oh, we reached out.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Based on reading similar things that were going on with my case that was going on here in Cincinnati, Ohio. And then as a result of that, a relationship was established. Dr. Enoch even had the opportunity to go down there and engage and to basically tell my story of what was going on with me here in Cincinnati. But we thought it was so important to bring you this evening and to let you share your story. First of all, before we get to the representative part, we want you to share your story as a judge, because again, you understand what it means to have persons basically out of the blue just come and attack you for being Black, for being outspoken, and for not being afraid to bring change. You know, as I was reading through some of your history, and of course, we've met personally years ago because of our similar stories. I was attacked literally for doing good. I was attacked for, I was the first African American juvenile court judge in the history of Hamilton County, black male or female, first African American actually elected to any county-wide seat in Hamilton County or Cincinnati, Ohio, over huge, budget, over personnel, hundreds and hundreds of employees, and immediately came in and started working reform in the system and seeing things that led me to become a judge that were wrong and that I wanted to do something about. And so I set out, became a judge, immediately took the bench, started making changes. And in fact, that first year I had changed law in the state of Ohio, several laws as a matter of fact. And thank God I did it quickly because they worked quickly to get me off that bench because of the things that I was implementing. And it sounds like the same thing happened to you as well. So could you please tell us your story of horror as a judge, as a first Black judge like me in Mississippi?
Okay. Thank you so much. You are exactly right, Judge Honey. We come from, at least I come from a long family history of social justice activists. As a young kid and stuff, like my parents always involved me in a lot of different things, taken to a lot of political rallies to see what's going on, to hear a lot of speeches and stuff like that. So, throughout my years, I learned the importance of speaking up for people. And after I resigned from election commission in 2000, so I ran for justice court judge, and God allowed me to have that position. So just like we said, when you come into position, you being the first, there's a lot of doors that you have to open for other people. And some people just don't like what you do for other people when you try to help the community. So basically, you're exactly right. Um, the first thing we started doing is seeing why people was coming to court, what was going on, and how could we help the community. So we was instrumental, like small misdemeanor fines. We'll tell them, okay, as your judge, I can't tell you what to do, but we can put people that can put you in position, tell you how to get certain things cleared up on your record so that you can continue to move forward. Um, we've done that for several years, and gaining more attention, going to all the judicial classes and finding out how can we assist different people that don't understand how the law exactly works. Because you understand, when it comes to understanding the law, everybody don't understand how it exactly works. Once you get in the system, it's hard to get out of the system, but you have to have someone to help you navigate through the system. So as you look at Judge Honey, when you start doing things for the community, tell them, like, this is how you get certain things expunged off your record. So when you go apply for a job, it won't show up anything like that. And we were very instrumental in doing that. And we had a lot of people come to court that want to be in my court, but due to the way things work, it's by luck of the draw or anything like that. But off the bench, like you say, doing a lot of political speaking, well, not political, just going to different churches, inform that this is what your rights are. Just tell them about the rights when they come to court and what to look for. So rock on, probably about midway of my term of the 12 years, we was instrumental in starting the drug court. So this is where the problem started from, with people that had a lot of addiction problems and a lot of families were being broken up. So we started the drug court. And along this incident, we had a problem with, the sheriff and everything. The sheriff just had a they showed up saying, we want to look at this and this and this. A lot of allegations saying that you was doing this in court when it came to people that was had drug problems, that you weren't doing this. So, in the state of Mississippi, we have this thing what we call judicial performance. And they come in and check your records and see what's going on and see if anything that's not, as they say, in the boundaries of, let's say, somebody's rights and everything. So they really couldn't find anything. So the sheriff kept calling and making complaints on me from the drug court. So what really actually started was it was an incident dealing with someone in drug court, and I wrote an order to have someone to be brought to court and stuff like that, but it was denied because I was sitting on the bench. They wouldn't, as they say, honor me as a judge. I would issue a warrant to bring somebody in. They wouldn't do anything. So the way the story worked is I got wind of this deputy said, well, they're not going to do anything. So I issued an order to have a show cause warrant for his deputy to come to court. So that really got things started and really got him, as they say, pissed off about a lot of different things that he just trying to find out what was going on in drug court. And the most outstanding thing is, when you have a sheriff and a judge fighting against each other, there's going to be some problems somewhere. Along the line, the staff that I had working for me, they said, I just want to let you know the investigator came over from the sheriff department, investigated me, but they couldn't really find anything. So after that, they kept looking. Then finally, with something that popped up, or with a person that had an addiction problem, which when you have a drug court, you send people off to treatment and make sure they get treatment, make sure they come to court and make sure they do like they're supposed to, and you do your drug test and everything. But however, the way things work, and as Judge Hunter can allude to, they have people in places that will not tell the truth and come get you and stuff like that. So the biggest thing about it is after we got everything squared away, I had to go down to judicial performance, have an attorney to go with me, and we went down, and instead of hearing my side of the story, the true issue of the whole thing was because the guy that's supposed to have been biased from judicial performance, I had the constable with me, had my attorney, and he's just going to tell me right out, like, hey, you're not made for this job. You don't get it. You either got one or two choices. You can either resign or we're going to take it from you. And I was just appalled by what was just talking to me, just like I wouldn't anything. I said, I'm not going to take this. So the attorney that went, he said, they already had their mind made up before we got down there. You had one or two choices, and you give the choice. So my choice was to fight back because I felt like I didn't do anything wrong for as that part. So it rocked on for about 2.5 years. We're going back and forth, and they still just waiting to see what's going to happen. But here's the great thing about it that the audience didn't know. It was time for re-election, and I had 5 people in the race, and they had me on the news at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, every hour on the hour. Had me on the ticker tape, said he's having allegation for this and this and this. But at the time, it's more like a civil thing. It wasn't criminal at the time, like a Judge Honors. So during election night, they was just waiting to see what's going to happen, even down to judicial performance. The way the Mississippi court is set up, they can either remove you from office or fine you or do either one. To kind of back it up a little bit, we did have the hearing and everything, and after the hearing, it was like a 3-2 to have me removed from office, but it wasn't unanimous unanimous decision. So they let it rock on to election, and I figured that at the end of the day, what they was really waiting on judicial performance was the board down there. They said, well, if he lose the race, we wouldn't have to make a decision. But it was 5 people in the race, and we didn't even have to have a runoff. I won outright the race, and they was like, okay, we're gonna have to do something with him. So the next day, they called and said, well, we're gonna have to remove you from the bench and anything like that. I said, that is no problem. I said, we still gonna fight at the Supreme Court. So we went to federal court. We filed a complaint in federal court saying that we want to exercise the will of the people. And when it was a 5-1 vote, in the state of Mississippi, if the people decide what they still want to have the judge on the bench, and that's at least I've said I was their choice and everything. So probably about 2 years, we went back and forth to federal court. And when it got to the Supreme Court, we was asking, does this remove, I mean, what does remove really mean? Because in the statute, it didn't say that you could be removed for 6 months, or you could be removed for the rest of your career. So we fought that, and it came down to the final decision that remove means remove. But that's when we went to federal court, and it bounced back. And probably 2 years ago, they just like when it went to federal court, they didn't make a decision on it, anything like that, because we was fighting for the rights of the voters, and they just made it moot me because I wanted to represent, because they said, well, since it's this way, he's not going to go back to be the judge, so it's just a moot. So we were still in federal court, so I didn't fight it anymore because they said it was a moot when it went to federal court. So we just left everything like it was. So after I won the representative position, so we just kept moving on, and it was just one of those things. But it was a lot of things that went on, like you're trying to like the sheriff was investigating me. Everything was on the news. It was just one of those things where, as she all knows, like it costs you a lot of money and stuff like that to go in court and stuff, like when you go to federal court and when you go to Supreme Court. It was just one of those things that if you don't have the funds and anything like that, uh, they would just run over you. So we had the community behind me, which we had a grassroots organization, what we call Concerned Citizens for Justice. And it was a group of people just like Judge Hunter. Wherever I went, I had at least 30 or 40 people with me. Even when I went to court, the courtroom was full of people that supported me. Even after the case was over with, I don't care where I go in town and said, they done you wrong. And, and it's what you had was helping. We saw families coming back together. We saw a lot of things that you're doing in the community when it came to young people. For as if a young person got into trouble or something like that, you would fair across the board, and you would just make sure that everything was taken care of. And it was treated fairly, and it was I was all about the justice side of it, and that was something that the community that I was involved in, which is probably say 50% white and 30% black. So it's kind of a issue that people really have to get used to in the state of Mississippi. When you being the first, they really not used to, and they don't understand the plight that we have to do when dealing with both sides when it comes to compassion. I'm quite sure Judge Hunter understands that when it comes to dealing with young people and dealing with different families. They have a lot of issues that you have to really take in consideration, and sometimes they do not take that in consideration when they sit on the bench. So the sad part about it is the misdemeanor drug court no longer exists, but they have the other circuit court drug court that exists. So the thing is that we're still missing a part of the puzzle since we're dealing with addiction, and it's something that's still going on now on the misdemeanor level. That is nothing that we have there for the community. So it's still a loss in a way that I feel, since it's not there to kind of guide somebody before they get into federal court and get that far. It's kind of an addiction that's really gotten out of control. But if you get something early enough, you'll be able to help that individual. So this been a struggle all along. So I'm still keeping an eye on the community, and people still call me now and actually say, "What should I do in this situation?" So uh, I've been blessed to still stay contact and connected to the community and everything. So that's something that I'm proud of as a representative. They call me about different things, so it's still a win-win situation. But however, we can't relax the situation, because there's still individuals out there that's in the system that we have to keep an eye on. We have to have those grassroots organizations to call them out when they're wrong. And we have to help people in the community that cares about the community. So that's pretty much my whole story. Like I said, it's not in yet, so I'm still back and forth, still being an advocate now in the community. So I'm glad to be on this panel tonight.
Well,
Thank you.
again, so glad to have you, and so much of what what you were saying obviously resonated with me, because again, it was the same thing. And with the people who are supposed to carry out your orders refusing to carry out your orders. I was having a similar situation, obviously, going on here, where the prosecutors didn't want to follow orders, and so when I started to hold them in contempt, then, like you said, they really got mad
Right.
and started retaliating. In fact, criminal charges for me were filed after I finally filed a ethics complaint against
Hmm.
the prosecutor and several prosecutors because they were just refusing, to do their jobs. They were not, following orders. They were being unethical on cases. But that really, just reporting them, then that's when everything kicked in. And then a couple of weeks after I reported their ethical violations, then I was accused of crimes in office, and then it just went crazy. From there to be a judge, and and
Right.
also a pastor, and then to be doing good, changing laws. They were particularly upset about an order I had passed, requiring them to turn over exculpatory evidence uh,
Uh-huh.
in juvenile court cases, and they had never been required to do that in certain information, and they refused to do it. So when I, began to, I enforced it and held them in contempt. But then later on, while I was on trial, and they were actually using those cases against me, my decision was upheld. And then, as you know, when it ended
Mm-hmm.
up going all the way to the Ohio Supreme Court and is now law. And so it's sad that some of the the things that we did that made it great, better for people coming behind us, whether it's in judicial office or even those who will be subject to the laws, that we had to pay a hefty price of our careers,
Right.
for it. And I don't know, mine is still going on. I'm still fighting to overturn, because I, got had felony convictions or one felony conviction brought against me, but that's all they needed to try to get me off the bench permanently, was to get that. And so that was their goal. But what about you in terms of, is I know you said you finally just kind of walked away. Is how many years was all of that for you, from the, or at least with the judicial, from the time, because you actually were able to at least serve 11 years, I believe, on the bench before yours happened. I was in my,
Right.
had just got on the bench after 2 years of fighting just to prove
Mm-hmm.
I won the election. And then as soon as I won my federal case and got on the bench almost 2 years late, and then, we're working for a year. And then that's when they then brought the criminal charges against me. The same people who fought me and who represented the Board of Election against me were the exact same people that then brought the charges against me. And
Right.
so for you, at least you had a lengthy time. But how long from the time that they came after you with the and the other thing you said, and I want you to talk about that as well, is that I found the Ohio Supreme Court was actually working with they were working with the people that were coming against me, because our chief justice, for instance, was on the
Mm-hmm.
was getting financial contributions from the prosecutor who had made the accusation against me. And then of course they were all Republicans, because I was the first Democrat in my position, as well as the first Black. So you have the political, the whole, all the was the Republican system. The Ohio Republican Party had sued me when I had brought my election lawsuit. The Ohio, so it was the Republican Party, and then all supposed to support and back me up as a judge and to follow the law, actually began to work against me as well when I started implementing and instituting changes in the system that actually made the system more fair and equitable for all.
You're exactly right. My trouble started exactly when I issued a contempt order for the chief deputy, and he made a direct call down to judicial performance. He made one call, and then I got the ball rolling. And probably the next day, everything started happening real time. I'm just like you. Probably, uh, I'll say at least 8 years I've been fighting. So this past year, talking with my attorney and just looking at the makeup of the Supreme Court, of the court going to higher court, he said it wouldn't do any good because from the past free administration, they're gonna rule in a certain way. So it'll just like be a moot situation. So I would say this year I just got a notice like, okay, we'll just stop here. And my attorney said it's really not worth it now because he don't think we can really win anything for us this part. So I understand what you're talking about when you said as soon as you issue a contempt order on this powerful individual, because this individual had worked for the AG's office before he became sheriff. So he had connections down at the Capitol. And anyway, all he had to do was pick up the phone one time. When he made the call, everything started happening. Long as an individual was calling, they'll say this, this, and this. but when you have a sense of power on one side, it's it's something that's really going to happen. Even when we had the hearing in Jackson down there, they gave him more respect than they did me. And that's at the hearing and all that and everything. You understand how, I know you understand how hearings are. Like, you got your attorney arguing for you, and you got this person over here is just really not telling the truth, just straight out lying, and you looking at them like, I just can't believe this. But I'm just like you. If they could have found one thing, they would have arrested me and had me charged criminally. But they just couldn't find anything. All the stuff was eluded from me, issuing an order for contempt for the chief deputy, and they didn't like that. But here's the thing that stands out with me, that's always resonated in my mind. I was in court one day, and we had the constable, which is a black constable, and I was on the bench. And the contempt order, if they don't come to court, that means you can really hold them in contempt. So I issued order to say he's got to be in court on this day at this time. So the sheriff opened the door, and it's probably it was the last case of the day, when I just said a show cause. Like, tell me why you didn't issue the warrant, because when you're in the court system, you have power between the sheriff department, you in their ring, but the court is the supreme power because they got to do what you say do. So we opened the door, at least they swung the door open. The sheriff come in first, and probably, I would say, stands on probably 25 or 30 deputies just lying a whole around the courtroom. And I was just like, this is just unreal, the show of disrespect for the judge for you issuing a contempt for the chief deputy, and he brings 25 or 30 deputies in the courtroom, just around the courtroom. And I was just amazed, like, this is still showing that old Southern mentality, how they treat people when you're trying to show that I'm in the right, and just intimidate you.
Well, and I can speak to that as well. And I'm supposedly in the north, but we call Cincinnati, which is, of course, I guess the southernmost northern city. And of course, this is the home of the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center, because the Underground Railroad ran through Cincinnati because the slaves would escape literally from Kentucky. You drive right across the Ohio border into Kentucky. And so slaves could walk on foot, across the bridge, et cetera. And in Cincinnati, would send them back. And so in some instances, so that's why, but a lot of that mentality, even as you refer, you call it the old Southern, but that's how we feel here. It's a sense of, and I was told this many times, getting into that position, again, first in history, a very powerful position on many fronts. And I was told I didn't know my place. And the sad thing is, and I don't know if you experienced this, but me being up here where Black people are taught to know their place, the sad thing is you had some Black people were saying the same thing. Oh, she didn't know her place. Oh, she should have
Right.
just put her head down. But it was my court, and I'm supposed to control my court. And so it's like the sheriff's department, that's their jurisdiction. The prosecutor, that's his jurisdiction. The juvenile court was my jurisdiction, but I'm the only person that was told that I didn't have the right to control my jurisdiction. And so the prosecutor's trying to control my jurisdiction. Everybody was trying to control my court, but it was my court. And
it's your court, right?
Yeah. So but I didn't have the right. And then even Black people thinking, well, if you just had just like even making changes, I came in and started hiring African-American, person. And again, even that was, well, why did she hire Black people? Why didn't she hire, so just coming in and establishing just the right thing. When you come in, it's like when the president of the United States come in, he brings in his whole administration. He has the right to do that. And every office here, the clerk of court, when he was in his position, everybody applauded him for, firing people and bringing in new people. But when I brought in new Black people, both who, I hired some magistrates, first time in history. I'm the first Black judge in this area to ever hire magistrates in the history of our county. But I hired magistrates, and it's like, oh, why is she hiring people? And the other people hire them in their jurisdiction.
Exactly.
And they're applauded and commended. And so the blessing is that the magistrates that I hired just became judges. They were just elected judges in the last November election.
Congratulations.
So, thank you. And so, it's interesting to be, as the trailblazer. But then the door gets shut in your face while everybody else benefits. And some people, the benefit that will never even appreciate what you did.
It's so true.
They'll walk right in on the trails that you blazed for them. but not appreciate the sacrifice, unfortunately, that you made. And when you were talking about the sheriff's department and how they were, immediately came after you, I remember I went one day to the police department here, and to speak about something as a judge, and a Black police officer pulled me aside that was a friend. He says, well, you need to be careful because during roll call, one day police officers to watch anything to them that they don't like. And so they had the police in my courtroom and watch it. That's not their job, but that's what he said. And I said, well, why didn't you tell me this before? Why didn't you bring that? Why did I have to come over here to find out that they at roll call that they issued an edict against Judge Tracy Hunter because they didn't like the fact that I was now holding police officers accountable. And if you're bringing supposed evidence, prove it. And they didn't like that because that had never happened before. It was always whatever they said, even if it wasn't true, that
Right.
they took their word.
They'll let you know what's coming anyway. And I had some more staff to let me know that this was taking place. And I'm probably just like you was, if you go somewhere, you have to be very careful because the law enforcement is not on your side and you don't know who could be telling you anything like that. So that was one of the things that I had to be so keen and aware of where I was going. I was like, okay, if I don't get here by this certain time, you call me or see what's going on or something like that. So it still was a lot of different things that you be careful about since you still a judge, but you're not getting any respect whatsoever. Because I drove up one day to the building and stuff like that, and this deputy's just going, instead of addressing me as judge, hey, you call me by my first name. I said, this is something that you got to be real careful about. So it's something serious. So I understand exactly what you went through because when you have law enforcement, you have to depend on that the community know that you're going to be fair to them. And that's one thing that across the board, everybody understands is fairness and treating everybody fair across the board. So I understand exactly what you're going through. And that's some, as you say, to bring out, that's some tough times because you just don't know from day to day or what's going to come your way, what you're going to have to deal with. And like I said, it's just something that's nerve wracking, even when you have to go to court and you face these people and they just trumped up things to get rid of you, and you got we got to set us with you, and then you have people that you have the conversation with, have a conversation with. We had this, and
Oh, yeah.
stop.
Yeah, but the good thing is, and I don't want to take away from the fact that despite all of that you've gone through, the thing that is, I think it's so wonderful for you, is that you were able to run for representative. And then to me, that's like a black eye. It's that you were able to come back, and even though from what it seems like they passed the ruling, and based on what you said, that they permanently removed you so that you couldn't become a judge. But then you turned around and said, okay, fine. You ran for and became a representative. And so you're still in elected office. And
Right.
so I think that that's fittable, and I have to commend you. So can talk about that process, because I bet they didn't see that one coming.
They didn't see that coming. They really didn't think I would win, because when I ran for election as representative, everything that I'd done is just the last verse. How can you trust this man? He doesn't have any judge. He was removed from office, this, that, and everything. They've done the whole 9 yards. All the bad things that you've done, they had it printed out. You have these PAC committees that put all this stuff and then have your face and just have you just like, that's really not my picture, but let them have it. So I said, let them have it. So that really made the people that was voting, I said, we just don't like how they're doing it. So that turned the tables. They thought it was going to hurt me, but it made things better, because they didn't like what they was doing at the last final part of the election race that we was running. So the guy that had defeated, he had been in office over 39 years for representative. He was like a titan. So I'm like, I'm going for it. So it's like I said, it's joy in the end, but give God all the credit that I am what I'm doing now for the citizens. So I'm still giving back to the community.
Well, that story really encourages me, because it's for me to be fighting. And of course, one of the things that they made sure by doing the criminal charge was trying to thwart my future going forward, to thwart my livelihood, which and these
Right.
That has, obviously. But when God is on your side, because that was
Right.
designed, just like it was designed for you. It was designed to destroy, to totally destroy, to obliterate, to take you to the place of no return, no coming back. And to me, that's why your story is so incredible, and it's such an encouragement to me, because seeing the horrible things that people are saying about you every day, and especially when it's a lie, but they're putting it out, and then for me, unfortunately, and I don't know if you probably did, that I actually went to jail. I mean, and I couldn't believe, that I'm like, okay, this is a lie, but you really they had the audacity just to try to even back up, because that's the other, be dragged out. Yeah. And so, had the just thinking, and talk to me about
Yes.
how that impacted you, just just the whole piece about the lies, the media, just all of that.
Well, it really has a big impact on you. It gives you where that there's some evil spirited people out there that you just can't give up. Um, like I said, you do have issues that you deal with, but thankful I'm able to work through them and stuff like that. When you see those same people, now they want to pat you on the back and say, "Rah rah, is there anything I can do for you?" But like I said, you just have to get peace in yourself. You have to let it go. Now it took me a long time to really let it go, because there was a lot of sleepless nights and stuff like that. But I finally found peace within myself after we made it to the next level. It's like even for the next level. The thing that really helped me when we have meetings 2 times a month, our concerned citizens and the people come and still support you and everything, that really eased my spirit, and just let me know that people were still with me regardless of what was going on. It didn't change their mind about me. So that took me to a different level and gave me peace. When you're able to talk about it and express to people, and uh, still accept you in the community, let you come speak and do whatever you need to do. And they still tell you, said, you still my judge, regardless. I don't care what they say. And they still call me judge. I say it don't make any difference. I'm still judge. So it doesn't make any difference. So I'm still just the same. And they still call me judge instead of representative. I said, look, that's what you know me as. I'm still a judge. So it's good.
I want to chime in just for a moment, because I happened to read a letter to the editor that I thought was powerful. I just want to read a couple of sentences from that letter that someone wrote to the editor, because it reminds me so much of Judge Hunter and the other judges across the state of Ohio. There were 3 African American women who were removed from the bench, strategically removed from the bench, right around the same time that Judge Hunter was experiencing all that she was experiencing here, and then subsequently removed as well. But this letter to the editor says, well, I'm going to read this thing from the top, because something else just jumped out at me. It says, "Dear editor, we're concerned, disappointed, and very angry about the recent actions and penalties directed towards 4th District Judge Rick P. Thompson. This outrageous judicial lynching is a result of the envy and demeaning racial attitudes and actions of certain Lee County law enforcement and judicial officials." First of all, I'll point out, and then I'll finish reading, that we also described what was happening with Judge Hunter as a political lynching. So there were some similarities as well in terms of what the people saw. "Yes, we know who you are. Their attitudes, beliefs, and actions are still marred in the post-Civil War Reconstruction years in Mississippi. They have carried these charades with complaints to the Administrative and Enforcement Division of the State Supreme Court over and over. The judges' rulings and decision-making, which are certainly in line with other district court judges in Mississippi. But wait, Judge Thompson is an African American who dares to be compassionate, innovative, and fair in an atmosphere of racism, cronyism, and envy. The judge is of impeccable character, competent, compassionate, and demonstrates a firm commitment to those core American values of fairness, equal opportunity, liberty, and justice for all." And I found these words significant, Representative Thompson, because one of the things that I identified in all of the judges across the state of Ohio, the Black judges who were removed, the Black women, the one thing that I found similar was that they were all very compassionate judges, just as you've mentioned, people not understanding what you were seeing something different when you sat on the bench. You were seeing something that you felt there was a need to be compassionate about. And I want to just hear from you in terms of what you were seeing through your lens. And then I'd like Judge Hunter to kind of share also what she was seeing that compelled you to be compassionate while on the bench. And also, I want you to speak about it says you were also innovative. And I know Judge Hunter also had moments where she was innovative and even criticized because of the difference that she made when she was on the bench and the things that she did differently. Can you just comment on those things?
Well, the first thing I like to comment, you have to have mercy and grace for people, because you have to meet them where they are. You don't understand their circumstances, what they're going through. They may be going through addiction problem. They may be going through a loved one. They just don't know how to deal with certain situations. And you have to show them, the person, that you really care and you want what's best for them. And that's one thing that you have to understand. And also you have to use the law and apply it like it needs to be applied. But sometimes, like I said, as a judge, no, you can just say, okay, this is what we're going to do this time. We're going to give an opportunity to get this together. We let you come back in so many months and see if you made any progress with what we asked you to do. And you can do different things with different people to see if they are really sincere about what they're really talking about. And the other part of the thing is being innovative is you have to look at things in society, how you can make things better for people, because everybody don't have the money to go for. If you have addiction problem, if you have a mental health issue, you have to allow them to say, well, you call this person up and say, I have this individual. They don't have any funds, anything like that. Is it possible that you can give them some type of free service at the time to be innovative? And that's the same thing that we've done with drug court. And also, if you didn't know, we had a misdemeanor support veterans court. At the time, a lot of veterans was going off to war. They was coming back home, and they was dealing with a lot of issues and things that they saw overseas and stuff like that. So we were able to get them the help that they needed, being innovative to bring things that the community that you see on a first-hand basis. Because when they come to court, you're dealing with somebody that's broken, so you got to be able to see if you can help them heal that problem that they're going through. So it's a lot of things that you have to deal with, and you have to be able to sense certain things when it's sincere and give them an opportunity to prove themselves. And as a judge, I gave them an opportunity to prove themselves, and a lot of them come back and well, Judge, I thank you for what you're doing. I see what you was doing, and just to make something real simple. Uh, Sometimes you have an individual that I said, why you don't have your driver's license? What is your problem? And you showed them, put them in the right direction. So this is what you got to do. Once you come back to court and show me that you got license as a judge, along with the prosecutor, he'll make a motion. We'll dismiss. You won't have to pay that fine. I'll give you an opportunity, so many months to go do what you need to do to get yourself squared away, to get licensed, so that you'll be legal. So it's a lot of different things that you could be innovative about as under discretion of your judge and everything.
And Judge Hunter, can you kind of chime in and also share your experiences about when you had to exercise compassion, and then talk about the difference between judges who were there before, because you were on the other side of the bench and you saw some things that made you want to even run for judge. So can you comment a little about those times that you were compassionate, and why, and how you were different on the bench from your predecessors? And you're on mute, Judge.
And also, before I answer, I just want to remind all of those in our listening audience, whether they're attendees or whether they're on Facebook, that if they have a question, I'm not sure if they have access, because it says to the panelists and hosts, but is there a way, Dr. Enoch, for them to enter, if they do have questions that they would like to post, to ask, especially of Representative Ricky Thompson here, because
they should be able to ask questions. They should be able to, they should be able to ask questions. They have that ability.
I want to remind people, if you're watching, you please, if you do have a question you'd like to ask of the representative, while we have his expertise and background here, all the way from Mississippi, then we want to encourage you to do so as well. But yes, I've been a defense lawyer for almost 17 years before I even ran for judge. And mind you, and I'm sure that Representative, also Judge Thompson, experienced this, that the moment that, especially when you're breaking down barriers, as I was and as he did as the first Black judge, the first thing they want to do is to question your competence and your credibility and your qualifications as a judge. In fact, the conservatives are doing it right now to Ketanji Brown Jackson. That's the first thing they're saying. Oh, is this, they're doing this, nominating her based on affirmative action, or nominating her based on her credentials. So the first thing they want to do is challenge your competency. But I had been a lawyer for over 17 years, defense attorney, never had an ethics complaint or anything brought against me as a lawyer. So I was fully competent, fully qualified, but I did a lot of practice in the juvenile court. I represented juveniles and adults. And in the juvenile court in particular, it was just heartbreaking to be in there. First of all, it was like a cattle call. They had no respect or regard for the people. They'd set a time at, say, 9 o'clock, and then every single person that had a case, they would make them come to court at that time and just kind of sit there, all day. And a lot of times parents, especially single mothers who are bringing their children to court, and they might be working hourly type jobs. You can't just keep taking off of work, or you're going to lose your job. And so, I was aware of those type of situations, especially when they would go all day and then not even get to a person's hearing and then cancel a hearing. And so I saw things like that. Over 40%, actually higher than that, of the children that came to juvenile court didn't have lawyers. I was a private lawyer, but I also accepted contracted cases through the public defender's office. So I represented both private persons as well as persons who were, basically poor, because you had to be under a certain economic bracket in order to get a defender. And so, but the thing was, I treated my defender cases the same as I treated my private cases. And I remember one time a Black prosecutor said to me, he's now retired, and he would watch me in court. And one day he called me and he says, you know what? He says, you're a really good lawyer. He says, but your problem is, he says, you fight every case like it's your last case. He says, you fight every case. He says, you have to understand that you have to work with these people, the next day. And basically he was telling me to chill and to compromise in how I represented people. And I refused to do that. And so I gained a reputation even then as an attorney, and the prosecutors hated me then. Quite honestly, the head prosecutor, she'd cuss me out when I walked in court, and all I have to do is show up. And I'm telling the truth. And she later became a judge. She was, and I'm not gonna say who right now, but she would go off. I think it was spiritual kind of thing, because it was that crazy when I would walk up in the court. But so I saw the discrepancies, especially with little Black children. Oftentimes, they had no clue what their rights were. The parents had no clue. And the prosecutors would basically convince the parents to plead their kids to all these felonies, thinking that, oh, it's a kid's charge. So, so it's not going to have an impact on them, thinking, oh, they're going to close the case. You can always find a child's case. You can always, and if they enter into the adult system for any reason, believe me, everything is going to come to play. And so I just saw all of these abuses in the system. I saw children of color being taken advantage of, and I wanted to put a stop to it. And I knew, however, because I began to feel powerless as a lawyer, because not too many people were willing to fight the way that I was willing to fight, because they would make you feel bad. I mean, they would come after you. It was like they took it personal if you represented your client. And I think this is what I went to school to do. We're supposed to do this. But they would literally, the prosecutors would take it so personal if you fought for your kid. They didn't want you to do that. And then they would get mad if you did. And so finally I said, Lord, I've had enough of this. And so I took a step back for a moment, and I said, okay, God, I can't go back there as a lawyer, because I don't feel I can really make the type of difference that needs to be made. And so I said, well, if I ever go back, I'll have to go back as the judge. And so I was doing some other things at the time, and God kept kind of pushing it on me. And so finally I said, okay, God, I got you. Because I really didn't want to go back there. And so when I was clear that God was telling me to do it, I said, okay, God, and I yielded. And I went back. And so one of the first things I did is I got rid of that cattle call system, at least in my courtroom, because the prior judge, my predecessor, whose position I took, he was still doing that same thing. I came in, I immediately started staggering cases so that parents would not have to be sitting there all day. And that, to me, it was respecting the parent. The other thing, and they hated this, was I started holding the lawyers to the fire. A lot of the public defenders, they're just getting paid. But they would come in, they hadn't even talked to their client. And Judge Thompson, they would just come in 5 minutes before the case and then want to plead a kid to like 8 felonies. And I'd be sitting here as a judge thinking, well, they really didn't need you to do that. Why are you even representing them? And so it finally just got to the place, I saw such egregious actions and irresponsibility that I would have to hold the lawyers' feet to the fire, some of them, to make them do their jobs, because they were just used to not representing the kids. The other thing is I made sure that the kids were represented. I would insist that they had a lawyer to represent them when they came in the courtroom, so that their interests, as much as possible, would be protected. I also emphasize rehabilitation over incarceration, whereas all my predecessors, it was about incarceration. And so that was another reason they were so upset with me, is all of a sudden I'm dismissing cases that don't make sense. The fact pattern doesn't line up. I'm requiring them to do evaluations on the kids that they weren't asking for. Some of the kids needed mental competency evaluations. Some children weren't competent to stand trial. Some children did have a psychological issue that warranted them being, treated. So I would begin to, and then the court would tell me, well, that's going to cost too much money. We don't want to pay money doing that. And so they would get mad at me because they were thinking I was spending unnecessary amount of money to protect the rights, basically the constitutional rights of the people that appeared before me. I was really following the law, but those before me, because it was all Black kids and they were all white, I hate to say it, but they really didn't care. They didn't have the empathy or understand oftentimes the culture. And so for me, when you said, how often did I show compassion? Every single day. Every day. I treated every single case as if it was an individual case. And I heard Judge Thompson say the same thing. I didn't treat them like numbers. I would look for, when it came time to rehabilitation, I would look for unique ways to treat each child based on their individual background. You can't treat them all the same. some kids, I sent a couple out of the state because I realized that if they went back into the same environment that they came from, that they were going to enter back into crime or criminal activity. And I was trying to send them where they could get, whether it was trade skills or something, because some of the children couldn't read or write. And a child who can't read or write or is behind in school is much more likely to enter into the criminal system or into the adult penal system. I took a special interest in their education, and to the degree that the probation officers would say that they used to switch cases all the time, but they stopped switching when it got to my courtroom because they knew I was going to ask them very pointed questions about the background of a child and their education. And they knew they couldn't answer those questions, so they wouldn't take people's cases because they knew that education was important to me. So I focused on rehabilitation, I focused on education, I focused on applying the laws fairly that had never been done before. And then in terms of my abuse, dependency, and neglect cases, I was focused on reunification of families where a lot of times they would just put kids out there and they'd never see their parents again. And so I'd go through their cases with a fine tooth comb to make sure that if magistrates were recommending permanent division of the family, that I agreed with that decision. And they didn't have that before. And a lot of them were upset because they were used to just rubber stamping. Judges before me rubber stamped that the magistrates, and I wouldn't do that. I would go through their work. I would read every trial transcript. If it was 30 or 40 of them, I would read them. And so for me, just not just being compassionate, but just being fair. I think that to me was more important than anything, was being fair and applying the laws fairly, whether they were Black children or white. But the truth of the matter is the majority of the children in the delinquency system, as well as in the abuse, dependency, and neglect system, were all Black. So I just wanted to make sure that their constitutional rights were protected because nobody else, unfortunately, in many instances, was protecting them.
Judge Thompson, what was the makeup of the constituents, the individuals who came before you in the court? Was your court was it a mixed demographic of people, or was it mostly African Americans? And you're muted as well.
Okay. For us, it was mixed demographics, but it was majority Black most of the time. Most of the time, the person of color would have more of a hard time for the court system because they just didn't trust it when he was on the bench because they was mistreated so poorly before I got there. I'm just like Judge Hunter. It just wasn't fair across the board. So when I got there, I made sure everybody's treated fairly across the board. So it was mostly mixed, predominantly Black in my court.
Got it. Okay. And thing that I will point out they mentioned cronyism. Can you give us an example of what you saw relative to cronyism? And then Judge Hunter, if you'll chime in and talk about cronyism here in Hamilton County, because I think it was something like 114 relatives in the court system here, and most of them came from the prosecutor's office. But Judge Hunter can talk a little bit about that. But can you tell us about the cronyism in the courts that you saw, Judge and Rep. Thompson?
Yes, I'm just like Judge Hunter. They will have family members, just like in the judicial system. They have family members in certain like clerks, force officers. And then the thing about it, they have cronyism when you go to different places. If you worked in, like say, the Attorney General's office for the state, they had connections where they would call this individual and they would do what they say do. Just one of those things that we have to deal with because it's so systemic. We have a lot of people in different places of power that they have access where we don't have access. And that's one thing that we have to really try to break that barrier down. And I say how we do that, we do it through elections to make sure that we put somebody in office that will be in office that will do the right thing.
And for me, when you talk about cronyism, and you just, again, it's just amazing to me how much our experiences, mirror each other and how they use the exact same tactics. As soon as I was sworn in, and remember I was sworn in almost two years late on the bench because I had to fight just to prove that I won the election because they were trying to maintain that sense of power. And so they fought me all the way to the Supreme Court and to try to keep from counting those votes. But when I was finally sworn in, and things started happening to me as a Black judge, there was no one to protect me. When I would write to the Ohio Supreme Court, I wrote several letters and emails of things. For instance, the prosecutor's mother-in-law was on the First District Court of Appeals. So the cases from my juvenile court would be appealed to her. But then they would also want to bring her, even though she was on that court, then they would want to bring her. The first time I needed to take a break, and I had arranged for a different visiting judge, the prior judge before me, to come in to sit in for him, even though he was a Republican, because there was nobody. I was the first Democrat, so I didn't have anybody else that had juvenile court experience except every Republican. And so I had asked this one to take my place, and I sent it to the Ohio Supreme Court, and they said sure. Well, apparently the guy who had lost the election to me, but they then made a judge before me, he decided that he didn't want the judge that I brought in to take my place. He wanted the prosecutor's mother-in-law, who was on the First District Court of Appeals. So they would bring her in to sit in my space, even though the case was for them being appealed to her court, the very next court up. And it was unbelievable. And so I actually sent a letter to the Ohio Supreme Court, and I said, hey, I think that's a conflict of interest. Well, of course, that made them upset. Well, then when other things started happening they started filing a bunch of lawsuits against me, civil suits. Like the media filed lawsuits because I said that they could not publish the names or show the faces of children, like 12-year-old children, and they wanted to do it. And so when I said no, they couldn't do it, they filed lawsuits against me. Well, guess who then stepped in to want to represent me? The prosecutor. Well, the prosecutor was the one fighting me on the election lawsuit, who wasn't following orders in my courtroom. But now he insists on representing me. Yes, he insists on representing me. And then his mother-in-law, who's on the First District Court of Appeals, actually writes a decision and says he has to represent her and she can't have independent representation. So then when I write a letter to the Ohio Attorney Generals, well, he's best buds with the prosecutor. And so everybody was just connected on. And then all of his family and friends are working in the court system. And so it was literally nowhere to turn. And it was interesting.
Exactly.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Right.
They were
nowhere
all
to turn.
Nowhere, because they were all friends or all family, literally. And it was amazing, Judge Thompson and Representative Thompson as well, that a lot of these things went against the actual code of professional responsibility, at least in Ohio. I don't know what yours says, but a lot of the things that they were doing, like representing me at the same time they're fighting me in a lawsuit on the other side. I mean, they were literally representing me and suing me at the exact same time, the same persons. And when I would file the ethics complaint, in fact, that's what made me file the ethics complaint to the state of Ohio, to the Supreme Court, which is then when they allowed him then to turn around and sue me or charge me with crimes, the same person that I had just filed an ethics complaint against.
Wow.
So a few years, I mean, it's really unbelievable. It's so egregious and so unbelievable that all of this stuff happened. And it happened in the public. That's what makes it even worse. And I'm sure you understand, a lot of times the lay people and the public don't really understand, the laws, the way that we do, or the ethics and the things of that nature. But when it's happening in a public forum and the laws are, or the laws and the ethics are in black and white, and they're clearly just violating them like they're not there, because they're all in the system and they all work together. And so he can call his buddy at the Ohio Attorney General, and they can call their buddy that's now sitting on the Ohio Supreme Court, or even call the governor, who's the father of one of the Supreme Court justices right now.
Everybody's connected.
Every single person is connected. And so how do you fight that? How do you defend when everybody is on the same side and all the power is on one side and you have none? Now, I want to switch gears here for a second, because we've talked all about the judgeship. I want you to be able to talk about what you do as a representative in the state of Mississippi and some of the challenges that you might be facing, and the changes and things you're able to do as a representative that maybe you couldn't do as a judge.
Yes, with a judge, there's certain things that you can't be involved in, but a representative, a lot of things that you can get involved in. One of the biggest things that we're fighting now is redistricting. We have Congressman Benny Thompson for the redistricting thing. they redrew his line, and he had to go from one end of the state to the other end of the state, which is just unbelievable for somebody to go from one end of the state to the other end of the state. So that's one thing that we're really looking at, and he's fighting it also. And we're looking at a lot of laws that have been passed now. And you're talking about voter suppression, everything. So we have a super majority here in the state of Mississippi. So that means if you're on the other side, it means you have to just do like we're doing now. You have to just do debates or arguments on the floor and add amendments and stuff like that. So that's one of the things that we are doing here in the state of Mississippi for us, just looking at what you can do for the community. My predecessor, like I said, he had been there like 39 years. And for us getting funds back to your community and stuff like that, I've been very instrumental. Make sure we bring funds back for the small cities, that's predominantly black cities, that's been left out for the last 39 to 40 years. He was in the black district, but he really didn't support the district. But just like Judge Honor, they take care of their own before they take care of us. So that's one of the things that I've been very instrumental in bringing money back to the community and help open the door, like certain bills that they need to know about. Like here in Mississippi, we are getting ready to increase teachers' pay. Now, here's another bill. Have you heard of critical race theory, which is Senate
Oh,
Bill 2113? Now,
absolutely.
that's been an egregious bill that we had to fight today, but we just didn't have the number. So it'll go out on the floor possibly probably one day this week. We have to vote on it, but we really don't have the numbers to stop it. So we got this bill called the where it's Senate Bill 2113, which is just a critical race theory. It's probably 37 states have done that type of bill. So whatever the Republican Party is doing, Mississippi is really falling in line with that. What it is it's a bill. It's going to come down where people will have to be censored. Where a teacher can't really teach about history, just like people just like me. They can't say anything about it. A child may go home and say, "Well, they make me feel inferior to this." So you know how the school board issues been going there, go down. So it's really a big issue that we deal with. They say it doesn't have any teeth, but in the long run, it's going to cause a lot of difficulty when it comes to education. So it's a lot of stuff going on for the simple reason, like I said, they got the super majority. So that means we have to do what we can to stop certain bills. So it's been exciting. This is my third year in the legislature. So it's been very interesting. It changes every year. The biggest thing that was happening during the pandemic when we was off and on and stuff like that, passing bills that offer money, the CARES Act for the community. It's very interesting how the legislators work. You get bills passed. Um, One bill I did try to get passed the second year was what we call a ticket quota bill in certain cities and people of color in communities where they write so many tickets and stuff like that. I was instrumental in getting it out of the House, which I'm on the House side, but you have to work on both sides, the House and Senate. Once you get it out of the House, it got to go to the Senate. They got to bring it out of committee. So that's one bill that died on the Senate side that I was trying to make sure in the state of Mississippi that we do have that bill because sometimes city use tickets as far as revenue for the cities and things like that. So I'm gonna try to work on it again next year. I was unable to get it out this year because it's, like I said, election year is coming up pretty soon, so they gonna get the agenda out first. So it's a lot of things that we can do as legislators for us, our people in the state of Mississippi, for people of color, just make sure that they understand what bills will affect them, and we just try to keep them abreast of Senate bills and House bills that will totally affect the community. So
You know,
that's been pretty interesting.
in terms of, and you're right, everybody is, all dealing with this new phrase, critical race theory here, and basically how to keep education of African Americans out of the school
Uh
system.
huh.
To keep from talking about the horrible past as well as our great contributions, regardless of how you couch it. But in terms of you all's, I know here in Ohio where they're being threatened with contempt, and they don't care. They just refuse the voters voted a few years ago to amend the Ohio Constitution to redraw the lines so that they would be fair, and the Republicans just absolutely refuse to do it. And so they are literally just not doing it. They're willing to be held in contempt. But in turn, and because they have all of the control here, there's really nothing that can be done unless there's some kind of judicial enforcement. But
Right.
You are, what is the makeup regarding, how do you sit regarding Republican, Democrat? Are you like totally outnumbered there?
Yes. Okay. We have 122 members in the House, and we have, let's see, we have Democrats, probably, I'll say all together on the Senate, and it's 50 senators and 122 House members. So all together for us, the caucus for us, it's probably 42 of us.
Oh,
So
okay.
we really down in numbers and stuff like that for us on the House side and on the Senate side. So they had a super majority. So we have to um, try to see what we can do to stall bills to really to get things out for the people. But we just try to do what we can.
How I have to ask this question. And well, first of all, between your judgeship and your being a representative, what will you say that there's one that you've preferred more? Have you felt the liberality here? To a greater degree. Um, when you look back, would you do it all the same way?
Uh, far as that, it's totally on a different level. You have access to um, I would say state institution, department heads compared to judge. You boxed into a certain arena that you can't go over that line. But here, you got access to a lot of different things across the state. When certain things come in, you have a say so. Things that you can bring to the community for its economic development. So you have more access to bring things to your community. But it's still kind of on the same level, just at a different level. But both of them is where you can help the individual out to make sure that they get the service that they need. Just like you can be a voice. If someone having trouble, let's say for instance, like with the economic side for SGA loan and something like that, you can call us your representative and see what's going on to facilitate that to help move it along. Something like that. It's a lot of things that you can do for us, the governmental side, since you're part of the state legislature.
How is the racial climate down there? Up here, there's probably some people still afraid to go to Mississippi, and I'm being real.
Well, I would say it just depends where you go, but we're normal like anybody. They still talk like anybody. The hospitality is still good, but you can come. You won't have any problem. I get that a lot when you go somewhere, but we down to earth. It just depends on um, what everybody outlook is different. It just depends where you go. I would say, but here it's not a real big problem. But they'll talk to you. It's hospitality. That's why they call it a hospitality state. They'll still talk to you. Won't be any problems.
And but when they talk to you, is it, the one thing we always say down here, seriously, is people will say they like the South because down South, you at least know where people are coming from. They said it,
Exactly. They're gonna be
they,
upfront with you. Yes.
they
Yes.
don't
Yeah.
like you, they'll tell you. But
Mhm.
here, they smile in your face and stab you in your back.
Right. Well, down here they'll talk to you. If they don't like it, they'll tell you exactly right. So that's one of the good things about it. Like I said, but you do have individuals that will stand up for you if they're wrong and stuff like that. So that's a good part about the South. They make you feel at home. The good old Southern cooking, and just something that you could go accustomed to. If you come in town, you can see the difference. But if you've been here a long time, you really won't see anything. It's just when you come in town, you'll notice some difference about certain things.
What advice would you give to persons who are listening? One thing, um, that I, have noticed is that we have more persons now than ever before starting to enter into politics, Black people who are finally starting to run for offices, run for judgeships that they weren't really running for before. Um, what would you say, to persons regarding being politically engaged, even in terms of if you have an opinion on how to prevent something like what happened to you and what happened to me. Now, again, we were the first, you were the first
Hmm.
Black, I was the first. And so, and I think sometimes people that's lost on people because they really don't get it. They
Right.
still think it's about all the lies that were told and they don't realize those were lies and because they really don't understand the gravity of the position and the power and the ability to implement changes and just totally interrupt the system that was designed to oppress people of color.
Right.
You know, the penal system is a money-making system. The criminal justice system is designed to make money. The juvenile court was designed to make money off of the kids. And so every time I dismissed a case or you know, didn't find enough evidence to validate what they were doing, then that they believed I was taking money out of the system. You know, you're breaking us, you're rehabilitating kids, you're breaking us. If you know, if you reduce the recidivism rate, they don't come back, you know, because you cause them to clean up, you know, then you're hurting. It was an affront to the system because the system is designed to perpetuate itself. And so when you put something in a wheel and you stop it for a moment, that becomes problematic. But what do you recommend to people, you know, moving forward so that we can change the system? You know, they've permanently moved you, and that's what you're trying to do with me here. You know, so but somebody has to
Right.
come along that has to be willing to make a change, even if that means putting themselves on the line and becoming the
Right.
sacrificial lamb, if you will.
You're exactly right. You know, being the first one, you're always going to be the icebreaker. You're going to have to break down some doors because they got to get used to you first. What I would say, the best thing talking to an individual is you got to be involved. You got to know what's going on. You got to build relationships is the key thing. If you want to get in like politics, whatever you want to do, you got to go find out that person has been there where so you can find out what's going on and find out the pitfalls that you may be exposed to. There's a lot of different things that you can be exposed to when it comes to politics. You gotta, as they say, you gotta want to serve the people. That's the main thing. You gotta have a heart for the people. If you don't have a heart for the people when it comes to service or anything like that, you're not going to be a good leader. And you have to understand that everybody comes from a lot of different backgrounds, and you have to take people for who they are. But the most important thing that we got to realize is the power of the vote. When it comes to election, putting people in the right place, just like Judge Hearn and I, uh, that's the power of the vote. If we can't express that to young people, the importance of voting, one man, one vote, that's how we start breaking down these barriers that's already here and the systemic thing that's going on. If we can't get the people to understand, the first thing you got to do is you got to go out and vote and understand and get involved with what this person stands for and do the background church. Just don't do it because they say vote for them. You got to do the own check for yourself. It's the most important thing because why you think they're doing voter suppression in every state now to cut down on the vote? Because they understand the power of the vote. They understand if they get the right person in office, just like you and I, you can change things and make things better. And that's one thing we have to make them really recognize is if you don't vote, things gonna stay the same, policies gonna stay the same, and the people that's in office that stay 30 and 40 years, it can be changed if we start a grassroots organization. And like I said, if you don't win the first time, keep going back and back again until you be in the momentum and get the people involved and let them get to know who you are and what you stand for. So it starts at as they say, at an early age because my parents kept me involved in, like I said, a lot of political things. When it came to Mississippi, you know, it was a lot going on in the early 70s, in the 80s, and stuff like that in the state of Mississippi. So we went to a lot of rallies, heard a lot of speakers, and that's how I really got interested. How do you change the vote? Because I was talking to great leaders like the only way we can do things, we got to keep people involved. We got to make sure they go out to vote. We got to make sure they know the issues. So that's the key is build relationships and understand the power of your vote.
You know, Judge and Rep Thompson, here in the greater Cincinnati area, because of the activism of the coalition and other groups as well, but mostly a coalition, we have seen some change, quite a bit of change in Cincinnati. In fact, the court, when we started our fight, the court was majority Republican. All of the judges, just about, were Republican. It was very few African American judges, very few Democratic judges. And now the court is pretty much Democratic. The majority of the judges are Democrats. And we've seen the commission, which was predominantly Republican, is only a 3-commissioner body. And it is now, it was 2 Republicans and 1 Democrat. Now it is 3 Democrats, all women, and 2 of them are African American. It was all white males. We've also seen the city of Cincinnati completely change. It is predominantly Democratic, and I believe there's only 1 Republican on the council now, and the rest are Democrats. And we know that because of our efforts in waking the community up, in our activism and getting people active and engaged, that we have seen significant changes in the community in terms of now who is in charge, who's leading. Have you witnessed any of those kinds of changes in your local area? Because I know you all have also been, pretty active, or are things pretty much the same as they were? Have you seen changes as a result of your activism in Tupelo or even across Mississippi?
It's been some changes, like I said, in the local area, there's been some changes. Like I say, you got to have people accountable for when in office. So we have had some changes for us to vote and everything for us. My sister is, now she's vice mayor in Shannon. So we slowly seen some changes, just like I said, doing the coalition and everything. So we connecting with a lot of different organizations to make things happen. But just like I said, it's going to take a while, but we are in the process of getting other individuals to run for office. We did have a new person seated in the city of Tupelo, and she is very active and very outspoken for the city. So we are seeing some changes, but like the change comes slow sometimes when it comes to getting people involved. But you have to be consistent and persistent in what you're doing, and that's what we've been working on. But to answer your question, yes, we are seeing some changes. The only thing we just got to this next cycle, we are looking to, as they say, trying to get us another sheriff. We're looking to run a black sheriff this time in Lee County. So we're getting everybody in places like you guys are to make things change. And I believe they begin to, well, I know they begin to recognize some changes. Once I got elected, it was just like, okay, he's not going anywhere. So we got to pay close attention. So I'm still out there knocking on doors, letting them know that this is just on the beginning, but we still got to make some more changes. So the answer is yes.
That's awesome. And I'm so excited that your sister is now vice mayor.
Right.
And I know she was a business owner. I think she owned a child care center previously, right?
Right. She still does.
And now,
yes.
Awesome. And now she's vice mayor. That's incredible.
Mhm.
Which I'm sure that's your fight also probably sparked her political engagement, and
Mhm.
that's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And also here we have I didn't hear if Judge Hunter gave context to our gerrymandering fight. We're also fighting here in Ohio to get fair districts, fair maps drawn, and I was hoping Senator Thomas would join us up here on stage to talk about that process. For him, he was also drawn out of his district. I'm not sure if that's still the case. Senator Thomas, maybe you can at least give us let us know if you have been drawn out of your district, or if you're and I can also just give you permission to talk. Okay, he's coming up. So he can talk a little bit about whether he's been drawn out of his district, or if his district is still, hold on, I'm gonna add you, Senator.
Yeah, give me a moment to get set up here, will you?
Okay, I will do that. All right. So, but yeah, he also was fighting, or is fighting, to ensure that he's still in his district. But I know those maps have been voted on. The most recent maps have been voted on, and so he can give us an idea of where that stands now. But our Supreme Court, Ohio Supreme Court, has sent those maps back twice. And so they had to go and redraw them for a third time. And they decided they weren't going to do anything. And the court has now given them, well, they gave them until today initially.
Wow.
To tell the court why they should not hold them in contempt for not coming back with maps. And then they quickly drew maps and they presented them to the court, I think today. And I'm not sure if Senator, you're still in your district. Okay, let me go ahead and bring you back on stage.
Senator, how are you today?
Well, good evening to all of you. Y'all tuned in about around 8 o'clock. I was at some events. Everything that I've heard here that's going on in Mississippi, we got the same thing going on in Ohio. So we share the same concerns. We have supermajority Republican Senate, supermajority Republican House, and all of your governor, as well as all of the administrative office holders are all Republican. In other words, we got a one-party rule going on in the state of Ohio. It's been that way since 2011. When the lines were drawn, they were gerrymandered then. Now here we are 10 years later. And fortunately, in 2015, the citizens of Ohio voted to put into the Constitution some criteria that would prevent gerrymandering at the federal level. And then they also, in 2018, put in the Constitution criteria to prevent gerrymandering for the various congressional seats. And so that has caused the Republicans to be caught up in an impasse. They have been trying to hold on to power because they've held power for 11 years, 10 years. And this fair districting causes them to have to relinquish a lot of their power. They've drawn their senators and their House of Representative members into safe districts. And now they got to say to their own group, we can't do this anymore. And rather than tell their group of senators and members that they put in those safe districts, rather than say to them, we're going to have to draw you out into a more competitive district, they are defying the court. They have refused to draw fair maps. The process is set up as such where you have a 7-member commission, district committee or commission, whichever one you want to call it. 7 members are responsible for drawing the maps. 5 of those members are Republicans and 2 are Democrat. It's 3 members from the executive branch, which is your governor, the secretary of state, and your auditor. Those are the 3 members from the executive branch. Then you have 2 members from each, 2 members from the House and 2 members from the Senate, 1 Republican, 1 Democrat. The president of the House and the speaker of the president of the Senate and the speaker of the House, both Republicans, are on the committee. And then you have the minority leader in the Senate and the minority leader in the House. They are on the committee. So those are the representatives. Now, our minority leader appointed an African-American member of the Senate to sit in his stead. And it's Senator Seitz. Vern Seitz is our representative on the committee. Well, the votes have been 5-2 straight up every time the map's drawn. The community screams, the Supreme Court then looks at the map and says, these maps are gerrymandered. Go back to the drawing board, go back to the table. They went back a second time, came back with another map, 5-2 vote, 5 yes, 2 no's. went to the Supreme Court. It violates the Constitution because the criteria in the Constitution talks about packing and cracking and all of these kinds of things, you know. And so all of that's being kicked back. So every area where they have been able to gerrymander districts in the past, they can't do because it's in the Constitution of the state of Ohio, thanks to the voters. So this third time they've been sitting back again. They came back. They have another map. It's worse than the map that was presented to the Supreme Court the second time. However, the Supreme Court has said tomorrow, which is Tuesday, come before us and tell us why we should not hold you all in contempt of court. So they're going to have to go and present an argument tomorrow before the Supreme Court or their attorneys to explain why, when the Supreme Court gave them specific instructions on the drawing of the maps in terms of bringing a map that meets the percentage of the voting power of the state of Ohio. 54% of the voters vote Republican, 46% vote Democrat. So your maps should reflect that. And I should say your districts should reflect that. And that is not the case. It's all been just way off the charts. And they're doing that simply because they know that they'd have to draw a fair map if they presented a map that would be acceptable to the Supreme Court. Now, keep in mind, the Supreme Court of Ohio has a majority Republican. It's 4-3. However, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court has said, this is not right, this is not fair. I'm siding with the minority on this, minority party representatives. And so we got a 4-3 vote every time they're presented. And so we're waiting to see what happens tomorrow. They drew me out of my district that I represented, that I was in as a who was my representative. They drew me out of that district and put me in a district where another Democrat is holding that district. So I would have had to primary against that Democrat. And we said, absolutely not. We're going to fight you tooth and nail. And that's why the Supreme Court saw it as well and sent them back to the table. The second time they drew a different map, created a district that I would be running in unless things change. However, a lot of northern portions of the state and the northeast portions of the state is very problematic. So you got areas that are, again, the maps just are horrible. The congressional maps are just totally unacceptable. In other words, that we would have 15 congressional districts. The way the maps were drawn, 2 of those congressional districts would be Democrat, and 13 would be, well, one is a toss-up, but they got the money to really put forth to win that seat, and then the other 12 are solid Republican. And so that's what we're dealing with here. Right now, we've got 33 senators, only 8 are Democrat, and we got 99 House members, and 35 are Democrats. But this is the challenge. What the Republicans are trying to do, and we all know why they're doing all of this, is simply because they want to win the House at the federal level in 2022, and they want to win the presidency in 2024. So they're going to try to drag these gerrymandered districts through. Now, the problem we've just seen, though, is what the Supreme Court ruled at the federal level. Your U.S. Supreme Court ruled in Alabama, saying that those districts, those gerrymandered districts, were fair. I don't know how they concluded that, but that's the the price we pay when we allow Trump to become president of the United States. We gave the Republicans what they needed to control the country. and everything in it. So I say that to say in Ohio, what they're trying to do, since they did not get their majority rule in the House Supreme Court, now they're trying to drag this out to find a way to get it into federal court. And they figure if they get it in federal court, then they'll be able to get it to the U.S. Supreme Court and let them rule as to whether the maps that they presented, they're going to, hopefully they're hoping that the Supreme Court of the U.S. Supreme Court will say, like they said in Alabama, no, those maps are fair.
Well,
And that's what
Senator,
we're
I think the Supreme Court just said that they would allow them to stand. They didn't really rule on them. They're going to rule on it later on in the year when they're back in session, but they allowed them to stay as is for now, I think is what they said, but they're not going to rule on them just yet and the fairness of them. I think that's what it is.
Well, you could be right, but the handwriting's on the wall. You know, if you get clearly have gerrymandered districts staring you in the face, and then they say, well, they're buying time. They want to get past the November election. That's what we're dealing with now, because if they can get control of the House, they got control of the government again. And so Biden would not be able to do anything because the Senate and the House will be, where it is. And keep in mind, we've got like, I don't know, maybe 40 or so members of the Congress that are going to be retiring. And they're Democrats. They're not running again. So they see an opportunity to try to win some seats, but they want to get past this whole gerrymandering process. They want that to stay. They want everything to stay like it is, or keep the districts gerrymandered until after the November election.
Okay, it's time for us. It's almost 9 p.m. and so that'll take us up to 2 hours. Senator Thomas, thank you for coming on and staying on to update us on Ohio, as well as to also from your position as a senator, and then from Representative Ricky Thompson's position as a House rep in the state of Mississippi, to give us a well-rounded view on two sides of the country, the South and the North, as to how they are all intersecting right now to basically bring voter oppression. But Representative and Judge Ricky Thompson, we want to give you the final words here. Is there anything, I never had an opportunity to really ask you about your family, so I don't know if you're in your closing comments, if you can mention, how that's been for your children and your wife, all of the things that you've gone through to be where you are today, but as well as anything else that you'd like to say. We're really thankful that you took the time, and hopefully through your sharing, you opened other people's eyes up here to what's been going on here that people really didn't understand, but with you mirroring basically everything there that was happening here, that maybe people now have a greater awareness.
Well, Judge Hunter and Dr. Enoch, thank you for this opportunity to be able to be on this great call this afternoon. As you say, we've got to continue to fight for our, like I said, it's voter suppression, and we definitely got to fight for this redrawing of the district lines. That's one thing in the state of Mississippi that we're still looking at. So we want to continue to stay in contact with you guys, because the struggle is still the same, whether you're in the South or whether you're in the North. And my family, we are doing great. We had a new addition to the family just about a month ago. So we have 3 grandbabies. All of them are girls now. So they all doing well. The mom's doing well, and everybody's happy. And the family's doing great. And we appreciate the opportunity, and they're online listening too. So we're excited just to be part of this webinar this afternoon. Well, tonight, rather. So if you ever need me for anything, I'm just a phone call away. So thank you guys so very much.
Absolutely, and likewise, Dr. Enoch, or do you have anything?
Yeah, thank you so much for being with us, Representative Thompson. We have enjoyed your discussion with us tonight, and we appreciate you. It was something, as I had mentioned when we started, that we've been trying to do for quite some time, and bringing you in this forum. So thank you so much for saying yes. And hello, Miss Sheila. Thank you for watching, and to the family, thank you so much for being here with us as well. And Senator Thomas, did you have any closing remarks?
No. Looking forward to coming down to Mississippi and saying hello. I got a lot of family in Alabama. That's where I'm from, Birmingham. So looking forward, maybe connecting up with some of the legislators down in Mississippi.
Looking forward to it, Senator Thomas. I'm looking forward to it.
He said something about all that good hospitality and the food, Senator. So
that's right.
Well,
it's all true.
I'm gonna tell you this, and I'll say it. People say that when they leave the North and go back South, opportunity doors open up. African Americans are saying that in terms of opening up businesses and things of that nature. But it's much more difficult to try to do that in the North or to try to get ahead.
Well, I forgot to tell you one thing. And we passed medical marijuana in the state of Mississippi probably about 1 month ago. So if you want some license, anything like that, you better come on down.
No, we did it about a year or two ago, maybe 2 years ago. I voted for it. In fact, I introduced a bill to legalize it. It's currently being, it hadn't got a number yet. The Republicans are not going to let, the governor already said absolutely not, But all those the dollars that can be utilized, it go a long way to solve a lot of problems, all the revenue from that. But yeah, if I'm ever in Mississippi, I'm gonna definitely reach out to you. And if you're ever up this way, please just ask anybody in Cincinnati. They know me. And
Will do.
All right.
All right. No, before you go, what part of Mississippi are you from?
Tupelo.
Tupelo.
And you're on mute.
Tupelo. Yeah, it's from Tupelo, around Tupelo. About a little town called Shannon. It's about 5 miles from Tupelo. But you heard Elvis, right?
Yeah.
Okay, then. That's his hometown, Elvis. One below.
All right. You and him got a lot in common.
Well, all right. Again, we want to thank you. And just for everybody, I want to take the time. One of the things that you said, Judge and Rep Thompson, and that was you stressed how important it was that you had that group that was with you, that supported you in the community and rallied for you. And that's really what's helped me to make it through all of this as well over the last 11 years, because mine started in 2010 and it's still going on. But so I want to take this time as we're closing out to thank all of the members of the Coalition for Just Hamilton County, who sponsored this Black History program this evening. Thank them for their continued support, their continued stance for justice, and their continued fight and being on the right side of justice and not being afraid to stand up even when it's unpopular to do so. And so I just want to thank the Coalition, thank them for hosting tonight's event. I'll thank my co-host here, Dr. Vanessa Enoch. And again, we have an essay contest that's going to be coming up that we're going to be giving out. And so I don't have time to go into it because it's too late, but just stay tuned. When emails come from the Coalition, please read them and pass them on, because we want to give back. So we're going to be giving out a scholarship from the Coalition. We plan to award it on Juneteenth. So the details and the essay information will be coming out soon. Be looking out for that. And again, our meetings are on Monday, every Monday night at 7. Oh Lord, I'm getting confused.
7 p.m.
Every single Monday, I must be tired. Every single Monday night at 7 o'clock. And so there's still room to get on board and to support the efforts of the Coalition, because like Dr. Enoch said, we take we were really instrumental in the last election, and we plan to continue to be so going forward. And again, I'll open the way we close the way we open, and that was the quote that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And so please stand up today, make a difference, and let your voice be heard. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight, and God bless you all.
Senator, your mouth is moving. I'm assuming you're talking. Oh, he's gone. Okay. All right. Let me.
God bless.
All right. God bless you all too. Have a great evening, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone. And happy Black History Month. This is the last day. Happy Black History Month. God bless you.